Call the March 28th, 2022 meeting of the Rolesville Planning Board to order. Welcome, everybody. First item on the agenda for the evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, if everybody would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mr. Moss, if we could once again avail you.
All right. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here together and meet on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask that you bless this meeting and watch over us, and may everything we say and do be in your name. Amen.
That leads us on to consideration of approval of the minutes for the meeting last on February 28th. Floor is open for comments, corrections, motions.
I believe I was absent that day. I was absent that day, wasn't I? It doesn't show as absent.
You were absent and I got kicked out, I think.
Really?
Oh, that's right. I'm only kidding, I was not kicked out. I
No,
should
I'm
stop saying
jealous.
that.
I've never been kicked out of a board
I
meeting.
wasn't, I was.
Same here.
I take it back.
I had a
I
stomach
couldn't
thing
be here
going,
for
so
that.
I was absent as well. This was January 24th, right?
28.
February
So-
28th.
Oh, February.
Yep.
You were here, David.
So we had
I was. All right.
two absences. Historically, I don't think it's necessarily been noted for the planning board, but you know, if it's needed, we can add it. Either or.
I don't think you're not listed on there, right?
No, it's just absent and there's none.
Mr. Chairman, having read the minutes and only hearing the one correction of adding Mr. Schwartz as absent, I move we approve the minutes with that one correction.
We have a motion for approval with noted absence. Is there a second?
No, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please give us an aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next up is oath of office for Commissioner Pryor and Commissioner Moss. This is only the second time I think we've done this.
That is correct.
Good, the town expert is here.
As your East Wake television camerawoman and. So actually, Ms. Pryor, if you will join me down here. Ladies first.
Please.
Always.
And you just on the camera, face that way, and repeat after me, and I will not use too many words, I promise. I, Renata Pryor.
I, Renata Pryor,
Pronounced your name wrong, I apologize. Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as planning board member
as planning board member
of the town of Rolesville.
of the town of Rolesville.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You don't mind signing right there. Let me grab a pen for you. Come
Thank
up here. Renata. I apologize. Thank you. You can take your seat. And Mr. Moss. I, Mike Moss,
I, Mike Moss,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my
the
office
duties of my office
as planning board member
as planning board member
of the town of
of the
Rolesville,
town of Roseville,
so help me God.
so help me God.
If you would not mind signing right there.
Yeah, how many pages is that? Yeah, that.
Congratulations to both of you.
Nice, thank you. So I have a question. When did Mr. Hill do his? Did I miss it?
Say again?
When did he do his? Did I miss it? Or am I just forgetful?
I don't think I've done it.
Right, so when did he do his then?
I thought he did. Maybe.
I don't remember.
I don't recall.
I have photographic evidence that Mr. Hill, Mr. Lawrence, and
Oh, okay.
Mr. Schwartz were, did their oath of office at the October
Haven't had to do it yet.
27th,
Oh, okay.
2021 meeting.
Okay. All right.
So I took more pictures today, so I have more evidence of today.
Don't remember.
It's a deep fake. Next item up is probably the meat of this evening's meeting, the Commercial Growth Feasibility Study Draft Report. Michael, are you taking lead on this one?
Sure, I'll say a few words here in the beginning and introduce this item. Good evening, everyone. We have with us here today Jay Smith this evening with O'Brien Atkins. The town hired O'Brien Atkins about 8 or 9 months ago now to conduct this study or analysis to kind of look at the potential for commercial growth in a study area of about 1,100 acres, kind of all along the southern side of the 401 bypass. And our comprehensive plan kind of identifies this study area as part of it kind of on the east side is business park, and then some of it on the western side is mixed-use neighborhood. So, as you may know, the majority of our tax base is heavily residential, and so according to or in accordance with our strategic plan for the town, we really felt it necessary to start looking for areas in town in our planning jurisdiction where we could start to attract commercial growth, whether that be retail centers, whether it be industrial, manufacturing, big box stores, just really any type of commercial development or non-residential development at this stage. So we wanted to look at this area to determine the feasibility, and that's what this study kind of does. And so we have Jay here tonight to give a presentation and to allow for an opportunity for the planning board to ask questions and provide feedback on the study. We did have a presentation similar to this. We gave a presentation to the town board back in January. And we've also held a few meetings now with the landowners that own property within the study area to kind of bring them up to speed on where we're at. So this is just a chance tonight to hear the presentation and review the report. And then at some point, if not all feedback is gathered tonight, I might send out an email later in the week and kind of ask for any additional feedback or input anyone might have. So with that, I introduce Jay Smith, and I'm going to pull up your presentation here. I think this is. I'll let you
Great.
take it from here, Jay.
Yep, no, thanks, Michael. Well, good evening. I'm Jay Smith. I'm a principal with O'Brien Atkins Associates. We're located in RTP, so not all that far away. And we were delighted when we were selected to do this feasibility study, to work with Michael and his team, Meredith and Kelly and others here at the town, to kick the tires, so to speak, on a piece of land to see what it was capable of. As Michael said, the challenge is we're the town is looking and interested in looking for a way to turn around their commercial, tax base as is compared to the residential. And there's a way to do that. And I'll walk you through the process that we went through just by piggybacking off of the presentation, as you can see, we made on January 18th to the board. This is not a formal presentation. If something along the way occurs to you, hey, tell me more about that, or what's that mean, just ask me. So let me know questions along the way. So as I was talking about a moment ago, the need for this study was obvious, trying to turn upside down, or at least affect the relationship of the 92% residential to 8% commercial tax issue. Town of Rolesville is growing leaps and bounds. It's telling you something you already know, right? And there you see some of the other ones. And one of the things I always like to tell people is that this plan is not a design, but it becomes a vision for growth. It's not the final design. It's a vision for where you're headed, right? It's a compass setting. Basic scope of the project, as Michael alluded to, is about 1,100 acres of land. It's currently undeveloped. Some of it's being farmed on, but it's undeveloped at this time. And it's aggregated. It's connected. And I'll pause for a minute and I'll tell you how sort of unusual that is. I look at sites all over, not just North Carolina, in multiple states. Finding large sites is becoming more and more of an issue when they're at least nearby in relationship to a metropolitan area. Certainly you can find them way out in the hinterlands, but that's not where necessarily businesses always want to locate to. So having a large aggregated piece of land the way that you're able to do is very key, and not to be underestimated. One of the tasks that we had was to do a market analysis. So what is North Carolina looking for? What is this region looking for? What does the market analysis say that can be supported here? So we did that, and I'll walk you through the highlights of that. And then finally, it was a physical planning analysis. You heard me use the term a bit ago, kick the tires. We need to understand our patient, the site. Where are the streams? Where is steep terrain? What's sensitive areas? Where's access? Things like that, so that we can identify what I call buildable area. And then that's the area where we're able to draw. We're able to at least illustrate possibilities. Positive analysis for business attraction is the short or the highlight here. Fast-growing population, highly educated, higher per capita income, all those things that, these are all plus signs, all check marks. You want to check the boxes, Rolesville can check all of them. There is a bit of retail leakage, shows opportunity for grocery and general merchandise. I had a consultant help us with this. Crystal Morphus, her outfit, her company is called Creative Economic Development. And they do this type of study for a number of towns throughout North Carolina. And it just helps them sort of position. It brings, I'll call focus. I was using the term vision a bit ago. This would apply focus. She conducted a survey. She met with through a number of businesses that are here, and then began to use her experience to talk about, where we can recruit and places where you ought to target. Michael and his team, certainly in working with Wake County Economic Development, the information technology sectors, life sciences, so the whole triangle area is very gifted and blessed with lots of talent that is agile and able to work in these types of arenas. So the life science sectors continue to look here, and they will I believe, for some time. So in short, the market analysis suggests that the needs can be met here. They can absolutely be met here. The land in the study area can support vigorous commercial growth. I'll talk more about the appetite to do that, and that's where some rigor is going to need to be applied by Michael and his team, and for that fact, all the leadership of Rolesville, including the planning board and commission. So there is adequate infrastructure in place. It's certainly going to need to be extended. It's not complete by any stretch. We got roads to build. We have sewer lines to extend, lift stations. Cooperation needs to be continued and worked with the city of Raleigh. Partnerships still need to be formed and made, as you can imagine. But the short of it is there's a great opportunity before you. You have a canvas you have to be painted on, and this is the opportunity to affect that. The study area that I think you're familiar with, if you've seen the report, basically, while oddly shaped, is 1,100 acres. Some of it is on the north side of the bypass, some of it is on the south side, but it expands east to west quite a ways, from the high school all the way over to past the entrance, almost the town limits, as you would come into town. These colors are only just identifying the different tracts of land and the different ownership. There's multiple owners. One of the things I was pleased to see is that some of these are quite large. You know, you have hundreds of acres in some of these cases, owned by a single person or a family. So it's very workable in that regard. So this was our sandbox in which we played in, so to speak. As you can imagine, before you start to draw, you have to be patient a bit. You've got to look at the analysis. We have to look at terrain. One of the things that we really spend a lot of time on is hydrology. These are protected areas, wetlands and streams. I had a consultant help us with this as well. So those blue lines and those orange and yellow areas are either floodplains or streams or buffers that we need to stay out of. We always look at vegetation, soils. Soils, because they follow wetlands in a lot of ways, so we're careful about that. While the, probably from the quality of the screen, the terrain's difficult to see, but we did a 2-foot topo. All these are GIS database layers that we use. And we look at infrastructure too. I had NV5 assist us with this. So the green lines are the existing sewer, sanitary sewer, which is nicely feeds some of the areas that were slated for commercial and industrial growth. But as you can already imagine, and I mentioned, some extensions are certainly going to need to be made. You know, one of the things we like to do once we have a sense of the existing conditions is begin to say, well, what if? You know, what can happen here? And so I like to think about things in high level and conceptual diagrams. And so here you see an activity hub or a zone around what I call sort of the heart of the site. And in here, this area, I see mixed uses. So it's important to note that not one type of use will only be dedicated for one specific site. But in these areas, we have the opportunity to blur those lines and do hybrids. You know, you can imagine other developments in Morrisville. What was the name of the one they were looking at? Park West. Yeah, Park West and Morrisville would be a good example of things like that. So, and while there's still a lot of land left over and available for industrial and commercial growth, the crux of the study, folks like that, they need a place to eat and a place to get coffee and a place to do laundry and a place to shop and a place to live and all those types of things. So all these things are important, and we don't need to exclusively dedicate all of the land to just commercial and our industrial growth, if that makes sense. We recognize that there's Main Street, and Main Street has a great thing going on, and so we just wanted to acknowledge the connectivity that you see coming up the main road there. We also recognize that there's little pockets for, like, I call it a neighborhood center, perhaps over by the high school. So this is just a high-level sort of bubble diagram. We use that term for conceptual beginnings. We spent some time talking about land use, and this will be one of the things that the study will need to expand on as we conclude this assignment. Other assignments on the heels of this study will need to start to delve deeper into. Let's start to describe further this activity center. What does that zoning potentially look like? Let's look at the industrial areas. What kind of buffers are going to be established? What kind of growth you begin to describe it and stitch it together, so to speak. I think there's even room for still yet a bit of a residential. You see it sort of in the yellow flanking the blue area, which is the activity center. Some of it, because it was just logical, it was a bit landlocked and it was a logical extension of some existing residential areas. But there's also on the far west side some opportunity for multifamily, perhaps there by the church, and how it may feed and have a walkable community with the density and the activity sort of vibrancy that we would have of the activity center. So these are, and the purple obviously is the industrial and commercial growth opportunities. So this is a diagram of land uses that I see continuing to evolve and have more meat put on the bone, so to speak. So this was sort of, again, a beginning. While we were looking a minute ago at individual land tracts, I sort of erased that blackboard and I began to think about a new way of potentially laying out the land. And of course, you might imagine that how you move about, how you enter the site and how you circulate within it becomes really important. And I'd like to draw your attention to a really key road, and it's called the Fowler Road Extension. All the way over here from Rolesville Road, I'll start on the east side, and it would navigate more or less through the site moving westward, but then arc back up nearest to the church and connect with a full movement intersection that we already have on the bypass. Fowler Road Extension becomes a really key artery to how you would feed these tracts of land, which we have set up. And as you can see in the table, there's roughly 40 or so tracts of land. We were intentional about making some large, keeping some large, and then also offering mid-sized and smaller sites too. And that's how their acreages would play out. And of course, what we look at is buildable area as well. So we were looking at terrain and hydrology and things like that before. We had to, buildable area would discount those, would not include them. Buildable area would exclude areas like buffers on streams, floodplains, setbacks that we would have, stuff like that. So we understand that buildable area in its full potential. So this tract, I call it a tract map or a subdivision tract, really is an important map because someday here in the near future when Michael is getting calls and he has someone looking at the site and he'd say, well, the more I think about you, you might be interested in Site 34. Site 34 is this type of size, it can support this many thousands of square feet, and then you begin to be able to show it and you have something in which you can take them out to the site actually and potentially see. The next thing we did was begin to populate those tracts. And so we kept the colors consistent with the land use diagram that we just had a bit ago. The purple is just like the land use color was purple, is large commercial and industrial sites, and that blue is that activity center. Of course, we're hitchhiking pretty heavily on Fowler Road Extension because it feeds all of these sites. You can see some of the yellow residential areas, multifamily and so forth, and the extension of the single-family homes. I forget the name of that development over there.
Carlton Point.
Yeah, Carlton Point, thank you, where it would be there. And then even potential for some hotels and some highway services. You know, nothing to say that that couldn't also be part of the recipe for around this, what I was calling earlier, the heart of the site. I think that's a great possibility. Some of these hotels could even have like a small conference center that went along with that. Of course, we began to think about the infrastructure that would be needed to feed this area. So piggybacking off of the existing water lines, sewer lines in this case, the green lines, how they might be extended with the solid magenta and purple lines. So that is a next step. The old expression is, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it a bite at a time. So as we begin to phase this thing, you can start to take it down in chunks. You know, and it might be that there's a certain section of roadway that would want to be built. And then there we would also see the utilities that would want to be married and go along with that. We did the same for water. Water, you can see the darker blue is the existing line on the, in this case, the western side and also over by the high school. But then that lighter blue, sort of cyan color, would be how all that water lines could be extended. And as you can imagine, they're following some of the key roadways, and it would feed this development. Of course, after you construct this in plan view, we tilt it up in some of our 3D SketchUp views. You get to see this thing, and it starts to come to life. And this is when you can see, this is a view over the bypass on its, let's see, we're on the western side, looking down the bypass there. The heart of the site would be in the center. So in the immediate foreground would be some of that activity zone that I was talking about earlier, some of the mixed uses, shopping opportunities, upper level loft living, gathering spaces. I see this as a pretty active zone. Be careful, I mentioned this all to the group several times, we don't want to compete with what Main Street's doing. Main Street still needs to be the focus and do what Main Street needs to do. But because of the density that we have here, the types of uses in that activity zone I think are really going to be needed, and some of the residential that would be adjacent to it. look at the possibility of how a hotel could start to poke its head up next to the highway there and have some nice image appeal. And then more of that activity center. There you see Fowler Road. This is over on the far eastern side next to Rolesville Road. You see the high school in that upper right-hand corner. Some of these, the footprints are quite large. For instance, some of these larger rectangles are pushing 750,000. Maybe one or two of them even could reach up to 1 million square feet. And that is extremely important. You heard me emphasize earlier the importance of large sites. There are not many sites around the Raleigh metropolitan area that can say they can fit 1 million square feet. There's a handful at best. You could become one of them. And when those types of companies come looking, I think you would score really highly and be very interesting to them. We also talked about sort of a playbook. You know, going forward, it's one thing to have a colorful drawing on your wall and in your book, but you need to start thinking about how we get traction. Updating the future land use map. Meredith and I have talked about that along the way. So this assignment is not a conclusion by any stretch. This assignment that we have now putting a bow around here shortly is only going to lead to more assignments, but that's the point. So a future land use map continues to need to be articulated. I think that's particularly valuable because it would be a way in which you can fend off development that you perhaps don't want to include. If you want to preserve this land, you can reject a proposal by saying that's not in keeping with our future land use map. So it's an important point. Traffic is always on people's minds, and it should be. I think on the heels of this study, a TIA, a traffic impact analysis, could be done because a traffic engineer could look at this document and say, okay, now I get a sense of how many pounds you want to put in this bag. I can see how many trips per day it might be. And then at a high level, you would be able to see.
How can you determine that until you know what the actual business in that location would be?
Well, we
Right,
know
because
the
if
uses.
You've got a
that
large,
if-
so you're saying some of these are like industrial business park
Yeah.
type sites,
Mhm.
but some of them could be just an office, right, which would be low commute.
Right.
Versus warehouse, which would be high commute.
Right.
Because
So,
you're
so
setting
this wouldn't be the
larger
last traffic study to be done. This would be an initial one where they would make some broader, generalized understanding of an industrial facility like this. We can anticipate 1,200 trips per day, given the size and the square footage and the fact that they will run shifts. They'll make a series of assumptions, and then that'll put this kind of load on the bypass in Rolesville Road. And that turn lane, which is only 500 feet now, needs to be whatever. So it'll be that first step. Now, once a specific company comes along, Acme whatever company, and you actually learn more about them, a follow-up TIA will need to be done, but at least it'll have a template or at least a point of beginning. So they can make pretty educated guesses and understanding of what is coming, how we're complecting this site, so to speak, and make assumptions on how much of that would be office, how much of that would be industry, how much of that's residential. And they have a pretty good prescription on what they could anticipate. You heard me mention it earlier about an infrastructure plan. That certainly needs to be explored. Continued conversations with the city of Raleigh, order of magnitude cost estimates. How much is this segment of road and utility extensions and so forth? Meredith and her group, along with your input, would work on the text for the future land uses and refine the zoning. And there's work to be done on Michael's front too. So we can need to continue to partnership with Wake County. Wake County can work on your behalf. The Wake County Economic Development Group, the EDC, they can help promote this land just like Michael can and bring recruit companies on Rolesville's behalf and for, in their case, the county's behalf, but everyone benefits. Stay connected with the key landowners so that they are on the same page. As Michael said, we've met with them twice. There's generally an understanding. I think we have a good understanding of where we want to go. I'm not here tonight saying everyone is high-fiving and on board with that, but that's to be expected. I think, as I said earlier, this is a beginning. I think it's really important that we identify some key tracks that might be some of those early successes. Early successes are really important because what they do is they sort of validate and they verify the plan is valid and gets things moving. I think you'll start to see some momentum be built after that. Job and see, I'm not going to read all these to you, but you certainly can. But mainly, work closely with Wake County EDC, and Michael's doing a great job so far. We've already met with them once, actually, to share with them a draft of the plan, and they were pretty excited. Even on the leadership front, and I would include you guys in that group, remain focused. Everyone needs to be on the same page. This needs to be sort of your mantra. This is an energy that we're going to put into this plan. This is what we're looking to do. We're going to stay. Have conviction. We're going to turn away the things that we don't want if we're able and where we can, and we're going to invite in those ones that we want, so that we can keep this ship on the heading that we know we want to go in, that direction we want to go in. I think the rest there, but the last one, be patient. This is not an overnight thing. This is something that will unfold over a period of time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But I've worked with Holly Springs and some of the other towns. This is when they started. They started a long time ago identifying land that was available and not committed to for residential or other uses. And they began to put together a vision, and then that vision is now being implemented. And it's taken quite some time, but you have to stay focused and goal-oriented. So we have compiled the draft, and we're waiting on comments. And we certainly invite comments from yourselves and all of the board. And then what we'll do is we'll dot I's and cross T's and fuss with the last imagery and so forth, and make it a document that can come before the board. And I think that's all we were going to go through tonight. What questions do you have?
So a lot of your plan is really based on that Fowler Road extension. Do we have
Right.
an idea when or at all will that occur?
I don't have a good idea, other than I'm going to go back to a plan where we can at least point to it. There we go. So I don't know if you can see my cursor up there. My intuition is that starting on the far eastern side, coming off of Rolesville Road, makes the most sense to me. Perhaps up to about that first stream crossing. I think that's low-hanging fruit. The land there is fairly workable and manageable. It's not steep, it's not difficult. And in doing that, you would position a couple of key large tracts of land. And then I was talking a moment ago about early successes. You could potentially realize that. The other good thing is that there's utilities over on this side of the site. So it wouldn't be needing heroic extensions of utilities to get there.
Would you anticipate that the road would be installed as part of the development, or would you have the road in first to attract businesses?
Yes. There's any number of ways to do it. And you can be, and some towns get very creative with that. You could certainly get out in front of it, ideally. You would have the resources and the ability to do that. You could work with a developer to do that. There's a number of ways. There's not a single prescription that says, okay, here's play number 3, play number 4, and that's how you do it. There's a number of ways in which you could do it.
Would that also include the road improvements around that intersection of Fowler? Because you're coming across that curve, right? The dead man's curve, they call it, right? You come around that curve and you're right up on Fowler Road, the actual Fowler Road now, and you put a major intersection in there. That's got to be regraded, re-angled, because you're never gonna. If you put a traffic light there, somebody's gonna come up that hill and bury themselves.
All
on the
that would
side
have
of
to
a
be
car.
studied. And if its location needed to be adjusted somewhat to improve that, great. Again, this is a starting point, not a
I've been
final
opposed to the
design.
business park in this section of town
Say
since the original plan came in as part of the plan 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I just think that whole road and this side of the Rolesville and the extended area is being misserved currently. Right? Is you're going to take that road with new housing on it. You're going to put an industrial park next to it by the high school. You're basically going to cut off everybody on that side of the highway from Rolesville. Right? Why would I go in that direction anymore?
Yeah.
And then there's a lot more homes in that direction
Yeah.
right now. And other people in my area, and I'm not the only one, have said, Rolesville cares about downtown and doesn't give a rat's butt about the rest of the area. Right? I'm just telling you what
Right.
I talk to the folks, they're all my neighbors.
Sure. So it's a great point. With growth comes pains.
Well, and they realize it,
Yeah.
right? And these people have been around for years, and they've adjusted to the fact that certain homes are gonna go in there. But I think you're also restating how what you're gonna put in there now becomes a cold, commercial-looking business park with massive amounts of parking lots based on the map you have here, which is gonna increase traffic even more than it is today, right across from the high school, add another big intersection to draw more people into that spot. I know my neighbors will move. They don't, the growth out in that area has not been well thought out overall. And
Yeah.
people aren't interested. The people who've lived there for 50, 60 years aren't gonna wanna stay.
Well, that could be the case, and that's part of the point of having a vision. A lot of growth has happened without a vision, and I think one of the symptoms or the results of that kind of growth is you realize one day, after it's all been implemented, wow, I wish we'd had thought of that. And so one of the benefits of doing some high-level planning like this is you begin to see how far the headlights go down the road, and you begin to be able to do studies. Any traffic impact analysis would include all the residential, even proposed. So you would load the calculus, so to speak, on the road like Rolesville Road, and the personality and characteristic of Rolesville Road is going to change dramatically, right? It's not going to be the two-lane, road with maybe a center turn lane. It'll be something more than that, so.
What's the demand for this type of area, right? You've got a current occupancy, I'm sure, rate that you know of this kind of property. What is the occupancy rate in Wake County currently? 60%? 80%?
It's probably somewhere in that neighborhood. But I think
Not-
what we can do
There's
is.
still a lot of space open, right? And I get look, I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, yeah, I'll see this probably 5 years after I retire. Right, that's how long-term you gotta look at it, right, in this particular piece. But I don't know the demand you're gonna see in that space exceeding current growth that you see in other areas, right? So if you lock in this kind of land to do this, are we blocking off potential other types of developments that would go in that area because we say we want a business park? Right? If I'm at 60% occupancy in Wake County, that's a little more than half, right? Break down the number. Now you want to build another 2 sections that are going to be a business park, potentially. There's going to be demand for that?
Yes, from what we anticipate and what my consultants that I
What happens
have.
if there's not?
Yeah.
Are we limiting ourselves in that property in that area to not look, if you get a mixed-use, commercial, beautiful development that wants to come in and, like you said, it's a big piece of property, we're saying, oh, no, we're gonna use these for business park, are we throwing away opportunity because we want that?
Well, you can certainly explore other possibilities. The aim of this study was to explore it for commercial and industrial growth, and it's possible. Wake County is growing. This area is very attractive, mainly because of the talent. The reason why Apple comes here, the pharmaceutical companies that have just announced around Holly Springs, is because of the talent pool that is in the central part of North Carolina. I anticipate that will continue.
They all work remote.
Say again?
They'll be all working remotely.
And probably not even from North Carolina.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Oh, yeah, no, they're probably not here now, but they're looking to grow and to come here or to establish a location here.
You mentioned y'all had some meetings with landowners about,
Two.
what were their reactions to essentially tying up their land for only use as a business park?
I can't speak for all of them, but after the first meeting, I spoke to nearly everyone in the room, and everyone was, I think, pretty positive. They understood being patient will pay off. The land values will increase dramatically if they ultimately turn into a commercial or industrial use versus a sale to a homeowner. And their understanding of that simple principle or fact. And none of them that I was aware of, Michael, correct me if I go wrong here, or Meredith, none of them in that meeting were pounding the table, well, I've got an offer in my hand that I'm selling next week. Now, that still can happen, by the way. That still can happen. And it's one of the reasons why Michael will continue to maintain a close relationship with them, so that it's a two-way, open communication. They talk to him and he keeps them informed and so forth. But I thought, I'm not telling you that everyone was on board. In the second meeting, a few of the folks that were less enthusiastic made their opinions known, and they did that well.
Can I just say something? That previously at meetings, you couldn't get anybody in that area to want to sell. And then when that first transaction happened, people have come back here and have been begging for us to say yes to the developer so that they can sell and move out of North Carolina. So it's not just the town not looking at the opportunity on one side of town. Is it better on the other side of town to build a certain type of development? When people are coming in here working with the developers and presenting projects, it's kind of hard to say no if they are following the guidelines of what they're supposed to be doing. Does that make sense?
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying on this side of that, right? And our former board member, Pierce, put it very bluntly, right, and very right, is it's my property, and when I want to sell it, I should have every right to do so, right? And they've owned it in some cases for their family for multiple
Yeah,
generations.
yeah.
And I'm okay with that, right? And even the folks that live out there for years, the Fowlers, the Moody's, all those folks out there, great folks, they lived there for a long time. Pierce's, and there's roads named after those folks, right? Fowlers. They should sell that, but I'm questioning is if we put those type of pieces in that property, are we limiting their ability to sell it to a developer that's gonna develop something that's of interest? And I know some of the folks in those properties, I've heard them speak previously, right? One of them was very adamant that they were not happy with the development areas. They wanted more open spots, more open land, and basically turn their property into a parking lot.
Okay, so I would have to agree with what you're asking, and I know I'm gonna bring it up to the commissioners, because it's not the first time that I've heard that as well. I mean, I guess Michael can answer to that, since he's the only one here, other than yourself, but I've heard the same thing. So what is it? Is there gonna be an opportunity for them to take an offer from somebody else?
Absolutely. It's their land.
But then, are you gonna have people coming back to the board saying, well, I wanna do something totally different from what the plan is?
That's possibility always exists, yes.
Do they have to apply for an exception essentially to get the land use changed,
Right.
which is much more difficult?
Right, which is a public process that goes through public hearings and so forth.
I maybe just need to think about all the times that developers have come to the town, not agreeing, or with a different idea than what our future land use map has. I kind of, going back to what you were concerned about, possibly restricting future uses. That's what the future land use map does for the entire town.
Yeah. You're
And-
blocking this out right now is kind of one of those things, and planning more. In my head, you've got a bigger piece of that. I don't think the business park fits in with the image of Rolesville in my head, right? Great, you've small town. Small towns don't have 1 million square foot business parks or buildings.
Understand completely, but if the town goes with this or goes with something else, making the decision as far out as possible,
I look at this and I get upset, and then I look at it again and I go, I'll probably be out of here before that occurs. Just because there's gonna be no demand. for this,
It's quite
in my head.
possible. How many times have you seen a business park someplace else just take decades to build out?
And Phil, nobody wants to build.
But
an empty
if
building.
nothing else, you might have a chance to get the infrastructure in.
Yeah, God bless.
So I have another question. On the other side of Roseville, what's Raleigh doing? Is that something that they're looking to do as well? Continue on with the business park or the mixed-use commercial? Like, what's on that side? What is it gonna connect with?
That's a good question. I'm not aware that Raleigh has aggregated any land anywhere near this size. They certainly have puzzle pieces, which, you know, hundreds of acres here and there, but not fully connected the way this is.
So they have no plans on what they're gonna do with that?
I don't
That
pretend to
you're
know,
aware of.
I don't pretend to know all their plans, but I'm fairly familiar with the available land in and around this area. Nothing of this size.
Maybe you could sell it to Apple.
Yeah, that's a good
There was
question.
like another plan on the
Yeah.
other side that's gonna connect Rolesville with what this plan is stating.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any, but that's not to say that there's not something afoot.
And that wasn't a fair question for you because you're not representing Raleigh.
That's okay. That's okay.
I
Is-
guess,
oh, go ahead.
I was just to say, one thing that Roseville has been lacking is a commercial or industrial. We have very little, not much at all, and ones that were here have left, actually, because not enough room to expand, but, so, other than this property, what else is there? Because if you go towards Wake Forest, that's all residential. If you go south towards Raleigh, pretty much residential. Have you looked at any other areas, or just this particular Fowler Road extension?
Not specifically.
Okay.
And if we have, it's been, I think we did a study or two for Duke Energy, but they're a tenth of the size of this, or, you know, there are a few hundred acres here and there that we may isolate and look at, but nothing with the shoulders that this has. Roseville's a wonderful place to live. This could also be a wonderful place to live and work, is the thought. And it could be a place where you would ride your bike to that work, or you might be able to walk to that work. So you become a town that offers multiple offerings and not just a place to live where you get in your car and then you drive 45 minutes somewhere else to work. You can arrive at where you work in 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, and I think as Commissioner Schwartz, Planning Board Member Schwartz was saying, that, you know, Roseville Road, we've talked about Roseville Road with the traffic impact, with the 6, 7 neighborhoods coming in. There's, you know, several, gonna be thousands of lots down there eventually, but, so this would, I don't know, I'm looking too, this should 4-lane Roseville Road a whole lot quicker, and also 4-lane and make Fowler Road extension, because that's gonna tie back into the bypass at Lewis
Yes.
Ferry Road eventually, correct?
Yes.
The whole section of road needs to be rethought, right? Because unless you take Fowler Road extension and bring it north, then either you're coming down Mitchell Mill and coming across to get to Fowler Road, which is traffic on Roseville Road, or you're going north or south on 401, the bypass to get to the road. So basically, if you're gonna feed it into that, you're bringing more cars across Roseville Road to get to the business park, to get to the high school. They're not gonna come down 401 and then come back up Fowler Road. You're drawing traffic into a central location.
Right.
The only way to get there, right, from the particular piece. And if they do, or if they're gonna go to that commercial area with the blue, you're coming down Mitchell Mill, cross down Fowler, because you don't wanna hit the bypass, or you're coming straight down the bypass, which is fine, because that's what it's kinda there for. But I just, that whole section of road is gonna be twice as worse than it used to be. And that's based on the properties that are already there, versus you go directly across, see the Fowler Road next to the high school is an open property, right? If you go east of that, there's 2 or 3 open properties, right? And then you go a little bit north of that, there's a 4th open property. There's probably, 400 and some odd acres worth of open property north of the Rolesville Road, on the north side of Rolesville Road, right? And those are going to be homes, so you added 400 acres, figure you'll get 800 homes in there, somewhere around that, 700, 800 homes or better.
Right.
That whole section of road, and they're all going to come down Fowler, and they're all going to come down that road. That whole section of road is going to be just horrifying. And then you look at that parking lot, look at the size of the parking lot in the high school, and look at the parking lots you got set up in the business park.
Yeah.
Right, the high school, fortunately, only is twice a day, right? But it's half the size of those parking lots, and the traffic is already backing up all the way up to the 401 bypass, right? Or up to, I can't even think of the name of the road all of a sudden, brain dead. The one where the high school is on the,
Quarry Road.
Quarry Road, thank you. Right, so the traffic already backs up to that, and then we're gonna add this. The
Well, you certainly
whole
wouldn't add
section of
this-
road is gonna have to get fixed.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's certainly, you certainly wouldn't add this without making the appropriate accommodations on Rolesville to handle and anticipate that traffic.
And 401, right? And that's state road.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got you've got right now, when you're coming up with 401 right there, you've got that short turnoff. If you back up traffic further than it is from Quarry Road, you're gonna back up on 401, which I have seen in real life. Right? So I've seen that traffic back up, and you're gonna turn that 401 into a one-lane road all of a sudden, with cars backed up. Twice a day, well, at least once a day. Morning
well,
traffic, fun.
I'm not a transportation planner. 401, the bypass is a fairly robust road right now. We'll have to, the study would have to show whether or not even further augmentation that would need to be
Drag the
needed.
DOT person out in the morning myself.
So when you say it's a robust road, are you saying that you don't see the traffic build up there? And I know you're not an expert on traffic study.
I don't live out here, but the times I've been here, I've not seen the traffic delays that you guys are talking about, but it very well could be.
You could stand out in front of the high school in the morning, and you
Oh,
watch.
my daughter went
Yeah, you watch how far it backs up now. All the way to Quarry Road. I've watched people pass on the double line just to get around the traffic that's there. It's great.
This plan seems to be almost like we're using it as a, I guess, sales and marketing type tool to lure businesses in. I mean, have there been any interest in this size parcels in Roseville? Or is this something to get a plan so we can go out and try to lure them in?
Yeah, no, I'll let Michael add on to it, but my intuition is that there's not, because there's not been sites advertised as available. This land has been here, but it hasn't been known, nor thought about or promoted. So now it would be getting into that position about being thought about and promoted and potentially available.
I'll just add a little bit. I do get inquiries, but yeah, that's what developers want to know or hear about is pad-ready sites or sites that might be certified. The state has a program, a site certification program, where you go through 20 different items of due diligence, and you're able to tell interested businesses or developers, like, you know, here's the soils, here's the hydrology, here's all the stuff to get, you know, that we've done in advance per a site certification program to get a site kind of shovel-ready or ready for development. And so this study is really that first step if we want to go in this direction. Ultimately, longer term, we would pick 100 acres here or 50 acres here or 150 acres there to say, let's enroll in a site certification program. Duke Energy also has one in the state. And invest some money maybe to get a site to a certain level of readiness or preparedness, where then you're able to market that to life sciences firms, biotechnology firms, the firms that Wake County is attracting, which we see in RTP and Holly Springs and Apex and Cary, to be able to kind of put that out there to the world and say, hey, we got 100 acres here, we're working with the landowner and we've prepared the site and it's, and we can market it. So, and I did want to kind of answer to your question too, planning board member Lawrence. We really looked at this area because to the east you have the watershed, right? So we're not going to be able to do too intensive commercial development over in the watershed, and to the northeast, I guess, yeah. And northeast is Wake Forest, so you have residential really coming in. And because this area was designated as business park and mixed-use neighborhood in the future land use plan from 2017, 2018, we thought also there was this study, you know, it made sense to kind of look at this area for future growth in Rolesville, and that it wouldn't be too much of a surprise to any landowners because their properties are already kind of in a future land use map shown as mixed-use neighborhood business park. So
Officially, I voted against that as well.
so that, you know, and some may not have agreed with that. So, but it, I think the question to be asked too is, if you don't do this and if you don't plan, what's going to be here someday in the future?
Yeah.
And can we, as a town, continue to sustain and, you know, deliver services based on a primarily residential tax base. What this commercial development does is bring in that tax base, so there's less of a burden on the residential tax base. You know, with residential comes all, you know, public safety, all the stuff that we're gonna have to pay out in the future as Rolesville becomes 10,000, then 15,000, then 20,000, and so on. If we don't kind of identify some land and reserve it for commercial, then I think residential's gonna, and that's what I'm hearing from landowners too. They're the knocks are on the door from residential developers to making offers weekly and monthly in all this area. So, again, but it's like Jay said, it's a vision similar to a future land use plan that could help guide decisions for the town and in the way that we want to go and how we want to see the future. So,
Is there a reason y'all chose so much land to look at for a business park, or is that just a convenience? Mainly, I'm looking at kind of the northernmost properties because it joins, you know, a lot of single-family residential lots and it has a couple of really large buildings really backing right up to those single-family. And now I foresee if a plan comes in, then we're going to have people out in the parking lot standing waiting to oppose a business park right behind their back door.
With all the lighting that a large parking lot has.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a building, the one I'm looking at is 500,000 square foot building. That's over 10 acres
Yeah.
under roof. That's a big building.
Big building.
yeah. And I think the point of the study was to see if it was feasible, if that's what we want to do. Again, there's demand for this in Wake County and,
I just don't see the demand. I hear that.
yeah. Well,
I hear it, right? I understand that, but if we're at 60% occupancy currently in the area, in the Wake County area, if there was demand, we'd be at 80%, right? Because the builders are going to have building a property built ready for, or get ready to go for that. But if you're at 60%, and I don't know, honestly, given where we're at, if you're going to see a lot more demand with, because you're in that flexible state of, are you going back into the office or not? Like my own job, I've been back to the office, I think, 6 days for the last 2 years, total.
So, I have a question. If this plan got approved, but you had a large distribution center, Amazon come in and want to locate here, would it be allowed under these zoning
Yes,
on there?
absolutely.
Okay. Because right across from Amazon, where the old Jesse Jones factory is, they're building a large, occupied at this point, is no tenants, spec building right across from that, you know, in Garner.
Right.
So there's some people that believed there's some demand for this kind of stuff. There was a development right off 64 in Nightdale and the bypass that was bought. I want to think it was like 80 acres. They had a 5-year plan, and I just got a email about a couple of months ago saying that all of that had been sold out and leased for distribution and stuff, but
And that's
because
my-
of demand.
That's my concern, right? Because you're turning around, you're saying you're gonna put a park like this, and you're gonna put a distribution center, which I could see there be demand for, and you're gonna put it on a road that I've been planning for 10 years, is already crapshoot. Right, so you're gonna put a high traffic with large vehicles on a road directly across from a high school and then pack more people into it. I get the particular piece, right? But if you're saying a business park to me isn't a distribution center. A distribution center is gonna generate a ton more traffic in that area. If you got some business park, maybe small doctor's offices can kind of see it because the traffic in that time frame, but a distribution center just high traffic area with large trucks.
Yeah, so it's just possible. I'm not saying that it would not be possible, but it would be in the commercial industrial uses.
Are any of these sites that are on this map now a single site that would be bisected or cut in half by this road?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
So if that landowner says, I don't want to sell and develop, what happens with that to get Fowler Road through there, if you try to do this?
So let me go back to what have I done?
Eminent domain.
Yeah. So this Fowler Road extension is in our community transportation plan that has been approved.
Okay.
And again, that's why we
Yeah.
kind of took this a little bit further to really see, well,
Yeah.
does it make sense? Does that pathway still kind of fit with, the feasibility of it?
When you talk with these landowners, they're aware that this Fowler Road extension is in the plan.
It's a that planning process was a public process similar to a comprehensive plan, where citizens and residents had an opportunity to weigh in, and there's public input.
Yeah,
But-
so
but
this is the land ownership map currently. And so where my hand is moving along, the Fowler Road basically comes in. Oops, got a bigger arc there. So it bridges and crosses several of those properties.
Sorry, can you go from Rolesville Road first? I just want to get my bearings. So where's Rolesville Road?
Rolesville Road, here's the high school.
Okay.
And here's Rolesville Road, where it intersects with the bypass. Rolesville Road comes down like this. And let's see over here, help me remember, Michael. Joan,
Then the Fowler extension would start from where off of Rolesville Road?
That's Jonesville.
yeah, Jonesville Road's in the center here. Fowler Road would extend us, oh goodness, this doesn't pan the way I thought it was. I'll zoom in. Bear with me. So here you see Fowler Road coming in, and as it is Rolesville Road, it would, I can full well imagine that a transportation planner would clean this intersection up and try to get things hitting at 90 degrees. So those alterations would be made. But it essentially what we did is where Fowler Road currently hits Rolesville Road is where, for planning purposes, we extended it into the site.
Yeah, and that's gonna have to get adjusted, because you couldn't do a 90-degree in there without really either bending Fowler Road up in that space, because that bend in the property right south of the bottom part of that pape is a sharp turn with a high hill. And you come up over that top of that hill, and Fowler Road's right there.
Yeah.
I always tell my kids, drift to the right and slow down.
So this is coming off of Rolesville Road?
So if you're on Rolesville Road and you go past Catlett Farm, right, and you come up, and I think it's the Stallings is on the right side, if I remember correctly, and then you come around that curve, there's a sharp curve, and then it goes up a hill. It's a narrow part, and then right at the top of that hill, when you come up over the top, Fowler Road sticks out right there. So that whole section of road would need to be regraded, because you need to lower the grade of the slope, and then the whole road moved out on Fowler, otherwise you're coming around a corner into a major intersection. And that would be a major intersection at that point, because Fowler Road extension would cut through for all that business part. All you need is one of those big old tractor trailers coming across the road as you're flying across that corner, and you're gonna eat it.
So you're not really referring to the intersection that's already there?
So Fowler Road exists there right now.
Right, but
Yeah.
there's an intersection when you come off of Roseville Road, and it's like a weird four-way intersection?
It's just two-way, it's just a T intersection. It's almost a Y.
Yeah, so-
Fowler
okay.
Road and Roseville Road now.
Yeah.
It's not really a four-way?
No,
No.
it's just a through.
I'm thinking of Roseville Road.
You
that's
think
not
I
a
Mitchell
four-way.
Mill, you think I Mitchell Mill further
Rolesville
up.
Road comes like this, Fowlerville comes like that.
Okay, all right. but-
It's that, if you're coming north from Wendell and you're pulling a trailer, it's that one intersection that you always dread.
It's just past the high school. You have the high school, then you have Sunset Manor, and then Fowler Road, so it's just past the high school if you're going towards Wendell.
So there's the
Okay, so we take
nice
that
little,
left.
small little house
From Roseville
with a
High
little cute pond in front of it, and then right after that is you turn left is Fowler
Because
Road.
it splits again, right? Once you turn left, is it like Lick It or Flick It or something, and then
No,
there's Fowler Road still going?
What's the name of it? No, because Fowler Road, it's a Y at that point.
Right, that's what I'm referring to, okay.
So and then you go down the hill and then come
Gotcha.
around the corner. And that's bad, but coming up that hill is the worst.
Okay, so let me just ask this, my last question about directions. You know the house that's always decorated for Christmas and they bring people in? Is that on Fowler Road? The
No.
family that's always doing the drive-through Christmas lighting?
No, that's
a-
Fix It Shop, isn't it?
Yeah, Fix It
Okay,
Shop.
so I'm
yeah.
confused.
That's way
How
down.
far down? Okay, gotcha.
Mitchell
Well,
Mill.
it doesn't matter, I have to drive out there. Is this something that's supposed to be voted on tonight?
Nope.
Okay. just making them aware.
Yeah, just to kind of receive and offer feedback and input like we have, and if there's any questions or follow-up questions later on, we're available.
How does the approved point subdivision tie in with this industrial? Do they have any stub roads? I mean, I didn't see that plan on here. I know it's just proposed and it's under construction, but do they have stub roads into this business park site?
I believe so right now, yes. So that would have to be worked out, how that connectivity.
Because I imagine once that subdivision gets developed, it'll be the same as the property on the north. You know, once we have, 400 or 500 people living in there, we're going to get a lot of opposition to a business park
Right.
directly adjacent to it.
Right, so definitely good buffers and all the, so.
I have a couple questions. I heard that, I read mostly that the IT/life sciences, is that based off of the universities that we have around to kind of work to keeping kind of the students that graduate kind of in our community to not move out of the state? Is that how you're basing some of the language for IT, technology, and life science, or how you trying to bring in those type of businesses or those type of industries?
In part, absolutely. The universities have a great release of graduates every year trained in biotechnology. In fact, there's programs now at these at the universities at NC State. They have the biotechnology, BTech they call it. So they're coming out trained in biopharmaceutical manufacturing. Very valuable employees. Yeah.
And that was my question, because I want to, because I'm originally from Atlanta, but, when I graduated from law school here, I was able to live and be able to, build off resources because of what was available here. And so I want to make sure, as we are thinking about, because, as our kids graduate and as our kids get to the next level, I want to make sure that there is some value for our children to stay in the community. So, for example, my son, he ended up going to the Marines, but it wasn't a lot of value around Rolesville for him to stay. And so, even if I keep my home, let's say, I do, me and my husband, we live out here for the next 50, 60 years, is there value for him to come back and live here? After he's, is there going to be some places for him to work? The 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away. And so I want to make sure that we've thought out the life science and IT. Is that just, is that a week kind of more of the Raleigh area? Is that more of our area? Are we basing that on what we produce in our, what Raleigh produces, what Wake Forest, all the way to, Winston-Salem, where all these wonderful, got Duke, UNC, you got all the, well, some people might not agree with UNC Duke, but, hey, they won, so we're on a good track. But just thinking about what they produce, are we able to keep them home or keep them in the community?
Well, that was one of the impetus says behind the Research Triangle Park coming together. They called it brain drain in those days. And so providing a place for people to stay and to work and thrive is still very much the goal. RTP still does that. However, there's just a few sites left in RTP that aren't already spoken for. And so that's one of the reasons why these outlying areas, because the talent pool is around here and growing. Kids that are this this high will soon be those future employees. And so the areas like this will become opportunities for businesses and companies to grow.
Yeah.
And to continue,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Just to continue, because I think about, what are the universities known for? And for me, I don't know if I hear life sciences, and it's just me. I mean, I don't know every school and every school's productivity, but I hear more business. They're known, we have, NC State being known not only for business, but for agriculture and for, life science and all that. But I'm just trying to make sure that we don't isolate and don't have the availability for the businesses, the business degrees, in all the areas. And then second, to the diversity. So I don't want to just focus on just, the NC State, which I love, NC State, UNC, and all those. But then we also have NC Central, which is where I graduated from. And then we have on to Shaw and Johnson C. Smith, and then we have Wade Tech. And so are we also bringing in the diversity? Because when you look at the numbers on the paper, the diversity is not here either. And so how are we managing that as well?
Well, I believe we are. That's certainly the aspiration. At NC Central is a facility called Bright, whereas NC State has BTEC. At Central, there's Bright, which is another training facility for biomanufacturing research and so forth.
That's very true. So I just want to make sure that we have put that. And then my third question is more towards the nonprofits. I saw that you did put some kind of, will there be incentives for nonprofit? Is that something that we can regulate, cannot regulate? I don't know what the balance is when it comes to regulation on that, having a percentage that should focus towards nonprofit, so that nonprofit, because based on this area and, with the median of $100 and something thousand, that's not a nonprofit, it's not availability for nonprofits to build in the community, if that makes sense, because of the value of, like I said, we're at 101,000, as far as our median. So nonprofits can't afford that. And based on the square footages and all the things that are being placed here, that's not going to open doors for nonprofits. Is that something that we can regulate, can't regulate? Is that something that we can make sure that as developers are building, that there's a section that is built just for or there's availability for pricing to be structured around nonprofit, so that we don't just get commercialized, but we have some level of nonprofit too as well. I think someone asked a question last time we were in a meeting.
I'd like to chime in on that, because I can tell you, I know of a well-established nonprofit in the area that was interested in relocating out here a few years back and gave it up because there were no suitable sites.
So that's my question. Is there some way that can we even regulate that? I don't know if we can regulate that, we got 80% of corporation and 20% has to be nonprofit. You know what I mean? I don't know if we can regulate that. Is that available for us to regulate? I don't know that answer. And do you guys know that answer?
I do not know the answer to that, but we can certainly look into it and figure it out.
Okay. And I appreciate that. And I hope that this study will, and that's why I'm bringing it up too, because I'm hoping that this study will, because you bring it up and you say consider a not-for-profit, but I want to make sure it's not just considered. I want to know how can we put that into this future use land project, because we don't want to just be built on corporations and and industrials and all these great things, but we don't bring nonprofits here to balance the weight of who we are in this community.
Well, there's a wonderful expression that says, floodwaters floats all boats.
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Floodwaters floats all boats,
Yeah.
both the big ones and the small ones.
Yeah.
And so I think those possibilities certainly exist. They certainly aren't discouraged. And I think there's opportunities within the activity node that I mentioned earlier, that blue area, for many of those types of businesses to locate there. Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a way, and like I said, I just would like to see in this plan and as part of your development and as far as the strategic planning, that there's some level of discussion towards nonprofits. And so is that something we can add to this? I don't know if this was a full plan and this is it, or are we able to say, here's something we want you to do some research on? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
This is a study that will launch multiple studies.
Okay.
So this is a very high level. So think of it in terms of altitude. This is up at 50,000 feet. Every study is going to continue to come down in altitude, like taking the focus knob and bringing it closer to the slide. You'll be able to see much more detail. But this is, as they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. This is at least a roadmap to understand at least where your compass heading could be. Yep.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate just having that as a part of it.
I just had a quick comment. What year are we in? 2022? I came here in about 16, 17 years ago. And then I had to look at my wife because we came from Raleigh, North Raleigh. And we looked at each other. I was like, are we sure we want to go out further? Are you sure we want to do that? At that time, that was, I think David Weekley was just putting up Carlton or wherever, those homes. Hampton Point wasn't even built yet. We looked at homes over there. And we looked at each other and we were wondering, why are we going away from everything that we've known in Raleigh? And we just saw that Raleigh was just kind of crowding on itself. So what was the reason why we left Raleigh for Rolesville? Is because we wanted to get away from it all. That said, you know, that's ground zero. That's ultimately why we left. We just want to get away from the hustle and bustle, the traffic. And now fast forward a decade and a half later, here we are. Traffic has caught up with us. Do we move out further to Bunn? I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here, though. One more thing we got to consider is what type of businesses we want come in here. We heard distribution centers, and I was like, yeah, that may not be as appealing right now because of the added stress that it's going to put to our infrastructure. But what about a Amazon executive office? These are people who are, well-to-do or whatever. And that, as I said, I'm just making a suggestion, playing devil's advocate. What about a sports park? I don't know. An ice rink? I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas. I don't care how silly or how small they might be, but just something so that we could kind of create this allure to Rolesville and the type of businesses that we want that will match the median, the lifestyle here, the communities that are here. And to Mrs. Board Member Pryor's point, too, as well, hopefully that my kid can grow up. He's 8 and 11, that they can grow up and maybe stick around for a little bit. That's probably not going to happen, but yeah, as I said, what was the reason for you coming to Rolesville?
What was the actual zone for that right now?
These properties, yeah, that was
What's the actual zoning?
that was one of my questions that was coming up next. What are the zones right now for these?
It's all ETJ right now. It's all outside
Okay.
of town limits, so it's that medium density blanket zoning that we have that's outside of town limits.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
And what would it be to be a business park? Because I hear industrial.
Well, what's the current zoning and then what's on the future land use map?
Right, the future land use map, right? If you're
Yeah.
saying, like, if it's industrial, could I put a chemical plant there?
Up to
It's up to the town.
town, yeah.
But what's the zone, right? If you're
Can I
making,
just say something, because I know where you're going, but we really don't have a say-so on who comes here.
No, we do not.
No, it's
We
up
do
to
not.
them, and if
We
it's not
absolutely have
attractive to
no
them,
say-so in who
they're
comes
not
here.
coming.
That's right.
So I just
You're-
wanted to clear up.
No, you're right. You're
I think we
absolutely
could.
right.
Can.
We've been talking about what type of business is
have
coming
the
in, but we have really no say as far as what type of business coming in. We can do the best, do our due diligence and fiduciary, but
One of these things that attracts a lot of people is if somebody came in and put a flex space that has assembly space, you can use those for all sorts. There's indoor soccer at some of these industrial spots. There's churches that use these flex. So
Yeah.
this would allow flex space. And so that's one of the easiest kinds of pieces to put up to attract people
Yeah.
on these kinds of places. Am I right on
Yes.
that?
Yes.
And so they could have the sports.
Oh,
piece
yeah, I
of,
was just throwing it out
You know,
as-
what
as
have you that you're talking
other areas
about,
to
but
think about.
Some of that, I think.
So one of the things you can do is begin to characterize those areas. And you heard me mention early on in the land use discussion, a future assignment coming at you is beginning to craft that language. And you can craft that language in a way that is allowing of multiple things, but you begin to get a sense of a flavor, of what that area might want to be. And you can actually describe what it is not as well. And so, and Meredith would be equipped at walking and leading you through that process at some point.
yeah.
I thought we have, in my recollection now because of the new ordinance process, is we have an industrial zone, we have a commercial zone, but I don't know where you would put the business park piece in there.
I believe we do have a business and technology
Is there one?
zoning as well.
Okay, I didn't recall that one.
So
I'll have to go look and see what kind of businesses are in that
Right.
zone.
That might be something that fits more in here as opposed to general.
I gotta understand, right,
industrial.
when I
Right.
come thinking back to the day, it was zoned, basically say the zone industrial, like, good lord, you could put a petroleum,
Yeah.
refinery there, that's industrial.
Right.
Yeah, so the zone IL, industrial, light industrial, is inclusive, or can be inclusive of quite a lot of things. In fact, I was just working on a piece of property today, Durham Tech Community College. It's zoned IL. So the recipe doesn't have to be so specific that you have to sort of open your mind
CO?
to.
Light
We should do
industrial.
a technical.
Light,
now
okay,
that we-
thank you.
Light
I
industrial.
thought it was- I just have a question for you, if you don't mind. I know the commissioners had asked for a lot, and I know Kelly said, why don't we do this study? But is this study Wake County based more so than it is Rolesville, Lawrence? Does that make sense? Is this some Wake County trying to find land and trying to find opportunities? And is the study now, hearing you talk, I feel it's more Wake County based when you're talking about the life sciences and what have you, than it is Rolesville. And I know we're heavily into the residential side and we need this.
I believe the beneficiary would be Rolesville.
I believe so too, but I
Yeah.
also, to a certain extent. But I also feel like it's more Wake County cultivated.
I think the tie-in, and it's a board member Pryor's question too, why life sciences? Those are Wake County Economic Development's targeted industries. So Wake County and looked at the Triangle region and they've kind of said, here's I can't remember how many there might be 12 or 16 total industry, advanced manufacturing, life sciences, information technology, a couple of finance technology. And so they looked at the county to say, what's in demand here, what's coming here? And that's kind of one of the answers to your question
And
as
who
well.
has land? Because that's the one thing that concerns me about Rolesville is that everyone wants to come here and build, create, what have you. But I don't think, this is just my opinion, that they're looking at the aftermath of what some of their projects would do to a small town like Rolesville. I mean, I
Like an
moved
Apple.
here because it's small, but that doesn't mean it was gonna stay small,
Right.
and I get that.
Apple will drive up the property. Or-
But, yeah, I'm just, it's a concern for me, hearing this. I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do. I'm just saying, if it's more county-based, I don't want Rolesville and what we stand for to get lost.
I think a secondary kind of reason for this study too is, does Rolesville want to create high-paying jobs in the town? Or do we want residents to keep going to Raleigh and Wake Forest and Cary and RTP to work? Do we want to bring that here where people are in town making
Well,
good money?
I would agree.
And we
that
don't have those locations yet, so that was kind of
I
another.
want that, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not sacrificing that, because we do have citizens that, there's a concern. I mean, I don't travel more than 6 minutes for my work, as you know, but I know some people here may. You know what I'm saying? But you know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
See, okay, you're even shorter than I am. But I'm just saying, I think the idea is great, but I just don't want Rolesville to be, okay, who do we have left? Who has land? Where can we go and create this? Why that location? I know the study was done. But when I asked about how Fowler Road really connected, because there's a lot of residential development taking place there. So, and it was one of our projects one of the developers that came before us, and we said no to it because the goal was, for example, townhouses go closer to Rolesville, not that we think being in town is better than being on the outskirts, and then single-family homes on the other side. But now if you have all these single-family homes on the other side, and you have these big businesses there, that can be a little bit problematic, maybe. Big lights, lots of traffic, parking lots, all that, I just think that it's just gonna be an interesting conversation tomorrow night.
A lot of thoughts.
How far out would we be from that traffic impact analysis?
That's a great question.
think it would be up to the town board if that's determined to be a next step
Okay.
that we would want to look into. And we might want to think about if it makes sense to do this whole area or some of the area or, a piece of it, and get more specific. I know, I believe Meredith is also maybe looking into a more holistic traffic impact analysis too along Rolesville Road. So there could be an opportunity to take advantage of that where if we're looking at Rolesville Road anyway, looking at Fowler Road extension and what could possibly be there, so. But if the plan gets accepted or if this report kind of is accepted, then that's a recommendation to do the traffic impact analysis. So that would be up to the town board to continue to pursue some of those activities that Jay was talking about, yeah.
And I don't know if you guys answered my question, how much, you guys have done an amazing job on putting this together. How much input are we, as he's sitting here, able to put into this, what you guys have put together? Because there's some, for me, there were some missing pieces that I didn't see in there that I would like to see in there. So I'm not sure, are we able to say, go back and, think this piece through and then come back and tell me, no, that doesn't work? I'm just trying to figure out, based on this project, what are we to input into it and how do we input and how do we provide input into it?
Well, my intuition is comment any way that you want to. And then
Okay.
what we will determine is if it has an application, it could be that we say, great, glad you thought of that. We can incorporate that into the second paragraph on page 3 or whatever, or bolster that. Or it could be to say, hold that thought, because in a subsequent study down the road, that's when that comment's more germane.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question.
But still record it. Don't, all comments are good comments.
So I have a question to that, though, because I know when you all meet, you're such a small group. Why would planning not be included in that conversation initially? Again, I don't know the process, I'm just asking.
I think this is the time, this is the feedback gathering stage, this is the input gathering stage. We've put this on our website to receive public input. If anybody has feedback, please.
Right, no, Michael, that's not what I'm saying, though, but that's after the fact.
No, it's still ongoing.
No, but I'm saying initially. I know you do your part, you get it, pulling this all together, and you did a great job. But I'm saying, at what point are is this board pulled into that before it's on the website? Does that make sense?
Right now, I
Well,
think,
I mean, honestly, I feel like now is the time we're being brought into it. He was just doing an economic development.
Yeah, this is-
Study, and this is just kind of an overview, hey, this is a tire we're kicking down the road, what do you guys think about it at this point? So
So you're
now, I
still-
think like, Jay, is it Jay? I think you said this is 50,000 or whatever, now you got
Vision.
another 10 reviews
Vision right
coming
now.
after this to
So I have
even
a
decide how to
question.
go down the road.
And I get
Said
that part.
economics. Does the commercial development, potential tax base, how much different is that from a residential tax base in the same square footage? In this there, so, is this gonna bring $10 million and residential's gonna bring in 5? How does that impact? Have we looked at that?
It is absolutely a great question, and I think the most appropriate one I've heard so far, to be honest. I don't know the answer to that, but Kelly could probably answer that. You may have a sense of it. But the benefit that you would have from the tax base, if it were to be larger in the commercial residential, I understand is pretty substantial.
yeah, we'd have to look at
That's
some
like an Amy,
specifics.
that's an Amy question.
Yeah.
Okay,
But also
wait.
do an impact analysis where you see, you can kind of do that with some commercial developments where you see, based on the square footage of the investment, how many jobs are going to be created. You kind of plug in a number of different things to see the overall impact. But in general, the idea is with homes, it's little taxes coming in and a lot of revenue expended for
services.
residents. Whereas if you have jobs and commercial businesses, you're not expending as much per the tax value you're receiving. So that's why towns want a good ratio. Some of these other towns in Wake County are almost 50-50, 60-40 residential to commercial, and we're at 92 and 8. And when I tell people that, they say, You know, if you want to think about long-term survival of your town to continue to provide for residents as your town grows, you seriously need to think about some non-residential development adding to the tax base of our town.
Well, and that goes back, everybody that moves to Rolesville, the first thing they ask is, when are we gonna get a restaurant? When are we gonna have
Right.
a place? But then we need more rooftops. Well, that's how many rooftops do you need to get the steakhouse or get the Italian restaurant? But then on the other hand, there is no
We're running
commercial
out of-
or industrial.
we're running out of dirt.
Here, I mean, we have, 9 schools in the district, 4 pizza shops, and, but there's no base to bring in a larger restaurant. And then there's a lot of, as you see, the Main Street corridor and all the plans for cobblestone. There's a lot of restaurants, so on, planned for that, but so I think this is 8% industrial, commercial, and 92% residential is, your tax base is pretty upside down right now, I would imagine.
I want to circle back around. I wasn't being critical. I was asking because sometimes I do feel like we go in circles and a lot, as a commissioner, I'm not saying as a planning board, we go in circles for a very long time before we finally hit the mark. So that's why I was asking at what point. I know you had to create it and start it, but sometimes when things are created and started from a commissioner's perspective, the citizens are welcome to voice their opinions, but then it turns into an attack on the commissioners versus, oh, this is not the final plan. So that's why I was asking, at what point would your planning committee here be involved before it's set out to the citizens? Like, for example, if it went to them first and then it ended up on the website, that's how I'm seeing it. But I do understand why you're here tonight. But that was my question. That's what I was trying to say, not being critical. Because this is fabulous. I could never put this together, but I'm saying, it's a lot of work.
Speaking of citizen input, I'd like to take the opportunity. Is there anybody here tonight who would like to make a comment or has a concern or just here to learn what's going on, or want to make sure you have your opportunity for input if there was something that you wanted to include?
No, I do, and it's been very interesting, because I'm from a small community, and so I see a lot of where you are and where you're looking at going. I agree completely. It's gonna fall back on somebody, but if it's a good thing, then you're gonna get all the glory and accolades. One, I wish you would come to my community and offer your plan. Two, I think that, having a balance is good. When you've got 92% and 8%, you've got to look at that because it's going to fall apart sooner or later. And I'm afraid it's going to go the wrong way. The thing here is, though, I think it's good that you've done this at this point, because if you don't take charge, then it's going to be too late with individuals selling and doing that's going to interfere with your big plan and your goal to do it in an organized way and try to make as many as you can happy. No, as a landowner, I probably would not if I had a big farm or something like that. Absolutely. But I'll tell you one thing, and he can agree with me, when you're gone, what do you think your kids are going to do? They can't wait, most of them, to spend it and to sell it and spend it, whatever. But growth is coming, and either you have to take it or it's going to take a hold of you and go in a direction you may not want it to go if you don't do something and plan early on. That's the only thing I can comment. I mean, every one of you have very good reasons and very good arguments, but just having no dog really, like you guys do, in the fight, that's just my outside observation there, for whatever it's worth. Probably not anything.
Well, thank you for that. We didn't get your name?
Pardon me?
Your name?
Oh, my name is Cheryl.
Cheryl, hi Cheryl, thank you for that. We're kind of at that crossroads, so thank you so much for those words, for sure. That's why we're here, hoping that we can plan for a better future, that this growth doesn't consume us before it's too late. That's exactly why we're here. Shirley, right? Cheryl.
But
Thank you for
I'll
that.
answer to most anything. I had to. And I think I'm probably the oldest thing, or one of the oldest here, so anyway.
Thank you again.
Thank you. So,
No, I got another question from Michael, if I could. With the comments you received from us, and then I'm assuming y'all will make some revisions or tweaks to the plan, and you plan to bring it back and have us make a vote on it at some point in time?
Yes, it's something along those lines where, and please feel free as you all think of feedback or input or anything else tonight or, over the next couple of days, just email me your
Send it to you?
Yeah, email me your feedback.
I'd love to see in that map of the overlay of what the proposed zoning might be, and then just the matrix of what's included in that. Just
And
to understand better what, like, this property would be most likely industrial two, whatever or business park one, whatever the piece is.
Yeah.
And these are the types of businesses that could go in that location. Just to have a better understanding of what you're potentially looking at in that each one of those areas.
Yeah.
And if we have to make adjustments.
I was going to continue to answer Mr. Moss's
ahead,
question.
yeah.
Just, I think we're kind of in a few more weeks, month of feedback, information gathering. We'll gather all that feedback from the town board, from the planning board, from the public, and from the property owners, and kind of work that into have discussions about, as Jay said, does that fit in now? Can we tweak some of that now, or is it for a later study and a recommendation that comes after this study, were it to be accepted? How do we continue to move forward with different additional pieces?
And with if the plan moves forward and is adopted, would the change in the master land use plan take place with the adoption of this plan?
Not simultaneously.
But that would be a goal to
Yeah,
adjust.
'cause by accepting the report, one of the recommendations in the report is to update your comp plan to sort of reflect some of this. So that would be kind of the next step after that. So that could take another 6 months or so to engage in a comprehensive plan update where it would just be, the acceptance of this would just kind of be to, do we agree that this will help guide our future decisions of updating the comprehensive land use plan and the future land use map? And those are, and then thinking about zoning as a whole, another stage of, right now, we're just thinking about future possible designations. Rezoning comes much later.
I was just thinking along the lines of what potentially
What
would be
could,
zoned.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
I'm-
industrial, it becomes an oil park.
Going from memory, I think a lot of it might already be there in the land use map, because I remember thinking that whoever was going to do this is going to have to deal with some topographical hurdles. Yeah.
And just to be clear, these parcels, these land, they're not available, right? They're not up for
Somebody with enough
sale.
money, so it's always available.
It's not up,
Some are,
some are.
yes.
Oh, okay.
No,
That could change tomorrow.
right.
You're right, that could change tomorrow.
Some are on the market, some landowners have told me that they receive offers regularly to buy, and they've held off for various reasons.
So these could be flipped to residential properties if a developer comes in, decide they want to put more rooftops, condominiums, what have you there, right? It's possible?
Yeah.
Very possible.
Yep.
Okay.
This study has been out there for a few months now, so we can have those conversations if I'm interacting with a potential developer. And
Sure.
I've said, the town is looking at this. This is a study we're conducting, it's ongoing right now. Nothing's set in stone, but I think it's something that maybe developers are looking at if they've been paying attention to Rolesville.
Gentleman in the rear?
Thank you. This is a marketing tool basically to entice people coming into the area to do some of the preliminary work. When you get down to the specifics of a large project, you're talking a couple of $100 million, $500 million, $2 billion, you start querying underneath a whole bunch of other issues that need to be cleared. Whether you have the infrastructure, socioeconomic impact to the area, whether you're gonna need a Title V air permit, hazardous waste permit, wastewater permit, and what infrastructure you have in order to support that. So what you're doing is good, but then that's a high level, and then you have to start, you bring the interest to people, and then they start doing detailed planning, conceptual, coming down with what needs to be built.
All right. Chairman Powers, just a point. I have a hard stop in 5 minutes. I gotta get on a phone call to Japan.
Okay. So,
Do we table this for another, or we're
yeah,
done?
we're good?
Yes, I think so. Just as you think of feedback over the next few days, send it my way via email or call me, and we'll take that in and gather that, and along with all the other feedback, and see how we can work it into the report.
Well, thank you for bringing it
Thank you.
by and
Yeah.
putting it.
Thank
before
you.
us.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Nah, you're good.
Planning Director's report.
While you're getting that, I just want to say thank you again for my notebook.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate you printing and taking the time for.
Well, we can thank Katie for that.
Thank you.
Do,
So-
do we have anything that Mr. Schwartz needs to hear before
He needs a
he's
notebook.
excused?
I need a notebook.
Yeah, he didn't get the notebook.
I can go grab it for you. You know what? I have one for you.
No, no, I'm kidding. I just gotta run.
Would you like it? I will,
I will come back next.
James can run to my office and get it.
It's in your office. Want me to get it?
But do you have a key?
Do it.
Let me give you my key.
Intercept it on his way out.
If not, we can give it to you at the appreciation get-together next month.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Robin, is that date still the same? Even though like 3 or 4 of us may not be here? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Michael's getting you your LDO, so you can enjoy reading it after your call.
Thank you.
My report is short this evening. Wanted to let you know that tomorrow we are interviewing for a part-time code enforcement officer. So that will complete our planning staff for the time being. So wish me luck on that tomorrow. And been working on putting together a list of projected agenda items. So I wanted to give you a heads up on what's coming in the next few months. So at our April meeting, I anticipate us having thank you so much, Michael. I anticipate us having one preliminary plat that's a carryover from the UDO RMPUD process, and then those should be going away. And then we'll have 1 to 2 rezoning cases. And then I'm looking out in May, we have the potential for 5 different rezoning cases at our May meeting. I'm hoping 1 or 2 of them will get pushed out because there would be a lot of cases to handle in one meeting. And then in June, we're looking at 2 to 4 rezoning cases. So our agendas are filling up with the submittals that have come in February, March, and April. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up for that. And then also in April, we have our volunteer appreciation dinner, if that's what was just being, okay. And we also have the new February development report, and it will be online tomorrow. And just if you could think about what you like and what you don't like about this report.
Say that again. Fellowship report?
Oh, development?
Development.
Yes, yes. Think about what you like and what you don't like and what you think is missing from this. I'd love to talk about, in the near future, talk about what we can do to make this a very useful tool for you all. And that is all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Thank you.
Cool, great, thank you.
Town Attorney's report.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you.
Simple.
Any other business, Mr. Schwartz? If there's no business, Mr. Schwartz, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor for adjournment, give me an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
2 seconds.